Oh, boy.
Your attention will dip in, I forgot my makeup.
It's not,
It wouldn't help.
Some people don't need that.
it's a facsimile of him, but it's not it. It's not it. Facsimile, facsimile.
It'll make it look thinner.
I call the Cocalico Township Supervisor meeting for August 16, 2018 to order. Please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All those, please silence your cell phones. Also, this meeting is recorded and videotaped. First thing, approval of meeting minutes for our last meeting, which was August 2nd. Any additions or corrections to those minutes?
I make a motion the minutes be approved as presented.
Second?
Yeah, I'll second that. I didn't have any changes or, yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Any additions or corrections, any questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Police Department, Chief.
Thank you. A couple things to highlight off the report. First of all, we had a successful national night out, except for a little bit of rain, a lot of rain, I don't know how you look at it. So that kind of kept the numbers down, but it was still a successful time, I believe. Again, I would like to thank all volunteers, and especially Sergeant Trojan, who did a lot of work in that event, so I want to thank him. One other thing, we successfully completed our clean audit from the Pennsylvania State Police, so we should be good for another 3 years, following all the rules that they set forth. There were only 2 minor things that would be changed. They were fixed immediately, basically. If you take notice on the calls of service, total for the township in July was 753, and for Denver Borough was only 84, totaling 937. That's down approximately 200 calls from the months of March, April, May, individually. So we usually get busier during the summer. So I think our efforts of trying to control things and the officers' efforts of locking the people up that have warrants or that are doing things, the cooperation with the drug task force, all those things I think are coming into play because we're not dealing with some of the things that we usually deal with at this time of year, because I think we've dealt with them very well in those other months. So it's unusual for the call volume to go down during the summer, but it has slightly.
It's good news.
Traffic citations, we had 96 traffic citations in July in East and 15 in Denver Borough, 122 warnings in July, and 37 in Denver Borough. They got done with a traffic detail. I think they got done at 6:30, somewhere in there, 5:30. It was done in 700 block of West Warfield, or 897. And within a 2-hour time frame, they had 17 people or so. So we know it's a busy area, and we know there's an issue there. So we're out using the monies from the traffic detail and enforcement stuff to hit those areas hard. So they obviously had quite a few today. If I could, and bring it up again, it's been quite a while, a few months since I brought it up at Denver. I'm sorry, Greenstone Fire Company, when we had a meeting there, but in reference to my request to promote 4 corporals, I did a little bullet point type thing, trying to give a little more justification for it. First, we provide for an officer with supervisory training to lead each shift. It'll allow the department to move forward as East Cocalico begins a new phase of growth and expansion. It's very important for the police department to be in front of not only business growth, but also population growth. And we know those things are coming, and we're glad. It would only increase costs by approximately $6,000 a year in reference to salaries, and that's due to the fact that we pay per the contract $1.50 an hour for supervisors. So whoever the shift supervisor gets that extra pay because they're It'll allow for movement within the department and growth of individual officers that may have goals moving forward or moving to the other supervisory positions. It'll allow me to begin to show or guide those officers in doing the extra duties that will be asked of them, taking over some of those duties. Some of them would include, just as an example, the computers in the cars. I've been dealing with a new car for a couple of days now. County IT trying to figure out a bug that's in the system. It works, but we're trying to figure that one last thing out. Clean TAC officer training would be nice to have somebody else training that, and then the maintenance of equipment. We haven't had a promotion from the officer position in corporal since 2014. It'll give another level of legal protection from citizen complaints and lawsuits filed against the department, just so we have that supervisor who has additional training down the street. One of the important things is allow for a start of an officer evaluation process. We've talked about it for many years, but we want to move into that and having somebody as a first-line supervisor to give their opinions from working with these other officers on a day-to-day basis, we'll call it. And it'll show opportunity to the younger officers that there's potential for growth within the department. Any questions?
You looking for a motion to?
I would hope you would promote or allow me to promote 4. That's what I'm looking for. That would give us a corporal for every shift for the permanent shift structure.
Yeah, I think what's important here too is when we did some financial analysis on the officers, the numbers that Elizabeth and I and Scott had talked about, those numbers are confirmed at about $6,000 difference only, okay? From my perspective, for Doug and Alan, the benefits to actually promoting the 2 officers to corporals far outweigh the $6,000 at this point in time, okay? I think it's also important to note that we did look at the forecasted budget analysis for those officers, so those numbers are considered in there, okay? I'm personally of the opinion, I think it's the right thing to do because we have to put plans in place in terms of, we're planning for growth.
Yeah.
And we have to put the plans in place to plan for that growth because the last thing I would want to see is the chief's department to be left short-handed at the last minute. That's my opinion.
No, I agree.
Okay?
You gonna, I'm sorry. You gonna make a motion to
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
authorize the chief?
I'll make the motion to authorize the chief to go ahead and move forward with promoting 2 of the officers, 4 of the officers to corporals.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, Chief, you talked about the short-term yearly costs of this. What are the long-term pension ramifications of having those kind of pay raises?
We wouldn't think that $6,000 a year is going to make a huge difference. When you look at it from the standpoint of it's going to increase salaries $19,000, I took a step back when I saw that first. But then I realized and remembered, not that I forgot, but thought about the fact that we already pay that extra $1.50 to somebody, whoever the senior officer is on the shift. So if you do that every hour, every day, 24 hours a day, 365, it comes out to $13,140. So that offsetting, again, if it would have been $20,000, I could see why people would sit back and then take a, not that they didn't take a look at it, but just a longer, harder look at it. But with that difference, I don't know that it would have that much. I mean, I can't speak directly to the pension long term, but I think it'll alleviate some of that. That's checks and balances.
6,004 officers.
Correct. And again, if they're making more, they're contributing more because they have to put in 5% of their salary. So it is an increase, I mean, that's true.
Yeah, to answer your question, Jeff, there is an increase, but that increase is actually minimal. Because even though they're getting the extra pay, they were paying that anyway when they were shift supervisors, but then they also have to contribute more into their pension. So yes, from an academic perspective, it does go up. But that amount, looking here, it's minimal.
There's significant benefit there to having it, that it offsets the additional cost.
Right.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Fry, if I may. Chief, there was a nasty accident last week involving a motorcycle on
Yes.
272. Was it a fatality?
No, it was not. Fortunately, the individual, I was told, is in a rehabilitation hospital setting as we speak, and if everything goes correctly, probably discharged next week. Could have been a lot different if there would have been a helmet worn, but it was a helmet. I believe from what I was told, the individual pulling from the bank / 2350 North Reading Road parking lot didn't see, made a left turn in front, and that's how it happened. But he was wearing a helmet.
Any citations involved?
I believe there will be to the individual that pulled from the driveway.
No charges?
There were no other indications of anything that would lead to other criminal charges, so that was a good thing.
That brings to a point there. Do you consider the traffic 272 to be traveling a little fast from time to time?
I don't know if it's the speed of the traffic or if it's the amount of the traffic. When you're sitting at Hill Road, I think we all know, when you try to pull out on Hill Road, it can sometimes be difficult. And that's not necessarily because of the speed. A lot of times it's just because of the spacing. You have, distance between a few, you can't get out with cars to the right. And I think that kind of goes along 272 in many instances where it's not necessarily the speed. Sometimes it is. I think we had that problem everywhere. But I think it's the amount of traffic and people trying to pull out, especially if they're pulling out and making a left turn to the north, they're crossing over. So I'm hoping with the development in the area and the other things that are occurring that we move forward with.
Frequently, I observe a officer sitting back on White Oak Road at the Brick Church. And, it's occurred to me from time to time, would that be better placed down along 272, a high visibility spot that perhaps it would slow people down, make them a bit more attentive than back there where nobody much comes through?
I think if you look at it from a different perspective, that's a central location, easy response area to respond from to the different areas of that sector. I would not sit here and say that somebody shouldn't be sitting there, because I know they sit at Adams Antiques or in that parking lot that where the flea market is, or however you want to describe it, on a regular basis. One thing that I was always taught in college and in the academy is you don't sit at one spot. You move around all day long. So I don't know that it's one individual sitting there or if it's a group, and that's a nice quiet area where you can finish up some paperwork and do some of that kind of thing too. So, again, you have to weigh everything that goes with it. You want to be sitting in a very high traffic visibility area if you're looking down for a little bit of an extended period of time doing some paperwork. So you have to kind of weigh it as it goes.
Do you feel that visibility makes drivers more aware in a broad sense?
I wish I could say that.
Slow down that hard way when you see the car. It's already too late. It's already too late. There you go. See? That's what goes back to what we
They're
said.
predictable.
Okay, thank you. Zoning officer, Tony.
Yes, good evening, everybody. You should have a copy of my report. Due to the humidity level, I'll keep it short and sweet. Another busy month. Month of July, we had 40 new applications, 34 permits issued, 20 and we due 15 to pick up. In that month, I approved 7 new single-family home permits for the month. July zoning hearing board, Mr. Kyle Shalacy he did receive, was granted a special exception to conduct a architect's office out of his home. The month of August, we had Mr. Keith Reed, the owner of 765 Smokestown Road. He came before the board and was granted a special exception to put a driveway across the creek in a related floodplain on that property. Under code enforcement, the board will remember several weeks back, the Black Horse restaurant, now called Branson's Restaurant, had started some work there, and I'm happy to say all the permit applications and permits have been issued for any renovations on that commercial property. They're fully compliant. And 1215 Ridge Avenue, over across the street from the Countertech business there. If you remember, we had a boat repair place there for several years. I'm happy to say all but 4 of the boats are gone, and that property is scheduled for public auction, which is the Carriage Hill phases 3 and 4. Will be auctioned off, I believe, Thursday of next week. We've had several calls here at the township by interested parties in purchasing those phases. Underneath those items, I reiterate again, as you know, my office, Arlene Krause and myself have been heavily Wisconsin and census, 2020 census. All of that information has been submitted, installed, and accepted by the government census bureau. So thankfully, that's off of our plate for now. And let's see, I had a couple of complaints concerning Wabash Road development, Wabash Landing, from the residents in that area and also in the adjacent trailer park, dust, construction vehicles, so forth, that type of thing. Phone call or two was made to the project manager and the developer. They do have a water truck on site various days of the week when needed to keep the dust and dirt down and try to help out the area residents with dust in their homes, keeping it to a minimum. The Business Leaders Forum, all those invitations went out, and I'm happy to say we got quite a good response back. The due date for that meeting is next Monday, so I can get a number into the folks over at Leland Market, so you know how to set up the room and for how many guests, but I'm still getting numbers coming in as we speak, so hopefully I'll give you a good idea on what that final number is, but we've got at least 60 confirmed already.
But one thing you might want to do there, Tony,
Yeah.
is leave an extra 5, 6, 7 seats available, because, you know, people probably show up the last.
Exactly, and that's part of the, I've made a couple of phone calls to some of the area businesses that I know would want to know about it, and they had the paperwork, they got the invitation, just slipped their mind, you know, send it out 3 weeks before the event, it kind of falls off. But yeah, we'll have the room set up in excess, so anybody walking in, turn anybody away. One last item I'll add, number 10 on my list there, on Saturday evening, August 4th, I was called by our police department to respond to 181 Denver Road. We had a hazmat situation there where, due to the extreme rainfall and flooding in the area, the basement of this house was flooded significantly. In fact, what it did was it floated the fuel oil tank in the basement and caused it to rupture and spill its contents throughout the basement. You know, due to the location of that property, it's just south of the PA Turnpike, and everything is graded pretty heavily there. And I believe the sump pump was just overcome. But anyway, make a long story short, hazmat had responded. The Denver Fire Department was in control of the scene. David Harrow, they had pumped the basement down to about a foot, 1 foot deep, where all of the fuel oil was, and then hazmat took over that project and cleaned it up. I introduced myself to the homeowner, made her understand that she should contact her insurance company. They would be in control of the scene and the house, and that she should at least keep us up to date on what exactly is going to take place there, whether they clean up, do something with the house. That's still up to the insurance company. Nobody was injured. There was an elderly resident in the home. Wasn't overcome by any fumes, thankfully. But in fact, he was sleeping at the time. He had no idea anything was a problem. But like I said, thankfully everybody was okay. And that'll conclude my report, unless you guys have some questions.
Anybody have any questions for the officer?
Tony, was there any swimming pool permits issued last month?
Yes, sir, I have 2 in-ground pool permits on my list. People are still putting in ground rules. One of them was $75,000 worth. It's a nice pool.
Increasing the tax rates.
You gotta do it any way you can, I guess.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, treasurer's report. Okay, you have a list of bills as follows. You have a total general fund of $52,722.70. A total state fund of $24,905.33. And a total Denver Road Bridge Project / state fund of $292,237.05. Questions?
Mr. Beckley.
Yes, sir.
May. On page 2, approximately halfway down, it says Porter League Corporation. That's was our annual software for Evidence Computer.
Okay.
That is actually going to go away. I didn't realize they sent us a bill. They sent me the contract with the bill.
Okay.
With our new system that'll be coming in hopefully in October, they're going to have an evidence module in there, so we will not have to pay quarterly for next year or any year after that, so it saves about $919. So that bill can be removed and not paid.
Okay. Make note of that. All right, any other comments or questions?
Mr. Fry, final payment Denver Road, where did that money come from? Off the loan or
Off the loan. Off the bid line.
is there still a balance on the?
There's about, going off the top of my head right now, about $45,000 left.
Most all that was used up.
Yeah, it was pretty much all used up for the road project and the bridge project.
None of the money set aside was used at all for the project.
For what project?
There was budgeted money for the road project previously.
In the capital, no capital reserve money was used on that project.
All right.
It was all one.
Any other questions? I'll make a motion that the bills be paid as presented.
Second, same with the noted correction on page 2. Reduction of $919.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those no. Motion carried. Thank you. Land plan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First item on the agenda is the Mount Zion Baptist Church and in attendance tonight is Scott Miller, representing Stackhouse Sites Event Center, the applicant's consultant. And he does have a board to highlight aspects of the project. I'll give a general overview, update the board as to the status of the project. And then the intent of this evening would be to deal with some waivers, modifications, and deferrals, and consider conditional approval of the preliminary plans. So, the project is located on Denver Road, I think it's 3 Denver Road. It's on the northwest side, adjacent to the Comfort Inn. The applicant proposing is approximately 16,800 square foot worship center and a gymnasium addition in a second area of approximately 6,300, expanded parking and associated stormwater facilities for all the additional storage area and associated utility service upgrades as necessary to facilitate proper service for the structure. The project started out, first step was the zoning hearing board decision related to parking. They had asked for a reduction based on the operation of the facility and the multiple buildings. They were successful at the hearing. The plan presented, the preliminary plan is consistent with the zoning hearing board decision. Tony has evaluated that aspect of it. We have gone through several internal reviews of the plan with the township, several meetings on site to discuss specific issues relative to road frontage improvements, stormwater facilities, emergency access. Those items, various parties participated, Scott, myself on the technical items, Tony and Harvey on the emergency access aspects. So at this point, the last review letter issued, the prior review letter issued by our office is July 30th. As far as other agency status, they have not really pursued matters with the authority in much detail yet. They're awaiting some additional clarification on requirements relative to fire sprinkler, et cetera, for the structure. So once they have a better feel on that, then they'll proceed to finalize. The facility is currently served by public water and sewer, so it's just a matter of enhancing likely the fire protection service line, in addition to a recent request for a hydrant from Harvey. As far as the other key outside agencies would be PNEI, Pennsylvania Natural Diversity Inventory, a clearance relative to environmental factors. They had previously obtained that, but need to renew it to meet current standards, and that's the first step to also being allowed to submit and obtain review of a NPDES permit since the total disturbance is over an acre. So they have just recently submitted to the Conservation District for a DEP NPDES permit and have not yet heard back any formal review. So that's a general overview. I don't know, Scott, if you want to highlight any other aspects. The key discussion items tonight will probably relate to the road frontage improvements, typical requirements, and some approaches that were proposed to be utilized for this particular project based on its location and our anticipated view of how road and interconnectivity of access, walkways, sidewalks, etc. may occur in the future. So, do you have anything else behind it?
Just real briefly, we did have multiple dialogues with the staff and Brett on the project, so I feel comfortable that we've been able to work through some of the items, and that's kind of reflected on the waiver requests that we're requesting tonight. It's basically a configuration, as you can see here, the light gray is the existing paving, we're utilizing the existing access off of Denver Road, and then the darker gray is the new paving, and the darker brown is the new buildings. Again, it's pretty straightforward. We've been following the ordinance and working with staff, and at this point, I feel that we're at a point with the preliminary plan that we pretty much nailed down the layout, worked out the specifics, and then all we just need to do is finalize everything and we move to the final. And the reason why that we have not met with the authority yet is that the building had not been finalized and designed. It was only conceptual. We were working with a building footprint with square footages, and so that's currently being worked out. So once I have all that detailed information, I'll be able to provide a complete package to the authority to review. So, do you have any other questions about the project in general? We try to answer.
The only thing I can't see it from here, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't looked at it, but along the road frontage there, I've got to ask the question, and I'm going to preface it by saying as I drive up and down over the years, especially the corridor 272, and for good reason, we ask people to plant trees or something in front of their building. I look at some of those and I think, why are we doing that? Are there any on this?
But as you can see, this is all existing, the dark green,
right.
okay? And all of the plantings that we have shown here around basically are proposed. So we have it more concentrated around the parking to buffer that. And then there is an ordinance requirement for the number of trees that are required proportional to the number of parking spaces.
Right.
So we meet that minimum threshold.
And my question was going to be, again, going back to driving up and down, there's a lot of places where this board or the planning commission has asked developers or people building buildings, put trees along the front of their yard or their road front. And inadvertently, a lot of those trees are under power lines. And 20, 30 years from now, the power line comes in and the power company comes in and saws the middle of them out. It looks terrible. And I'm just asking the question, there's nothing that's gonna be like that on this plan.
You'll find that we're asking for a waiver request for the street trees because of the existing vegetation that's along there. The church has trimmed back some of that area to improve sight distance around that bend as requested by the staff. So we're working with getting that. But again, I think, and there was a request to add some additional landscaping between, as a buffer to the
That I
adjoining.
don't have a problem
Yeah.
with. It's more or less under, and what occurs under the power lines when they're keeping the elephants on their hind horse and said, we're gonna go and start trimming trees.
No,
It turns what is nice looking in the beginning into an absolute circus.
Well, one of the nice things about working with the staff is that we made a very practical approach with the conditions that were out there, and we were able to come to a compromise. Now, some of that requires waivers, and that's what we're requesting this tonight. But I think overall, I think we've done a very good job of utilizing the existing features that are out there and also tying everything together
Right.
per your code.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the items in the review is coordinating even some of the trees and lighting now, making sure they're coordinating existing overhead utilities and underground utilities. But I think our paramount concern from the beginning along the frontage was establishing adequate sight lines, and you mentioned that there's minimums, there's desirables, and so forth, and we've worked together to have those depicted on the plan. In fact, some of the comments on the review are how some of those are shown, but they've already initiated some clearing immediately so that there's not hesitation to solve an issue that's identified. And as he indicated, one of the waivers was not to put street trees back along that particular area, primarily as it relates to sightlines. So
I do want to bring out one point. One of the things that staff have requested, I think the township has been looking for, is an emergency access, second access.
Right.
So we've been working with the adjoining hotel and providing probably a 24-foot wide access that will be chained, so it will be used for emergency vehicles only.
Okay.
So,
Thanks, sir.
that was, and that relates to another project. It just so happens that at the current time, there's two plans pending on two adjacent properties. And every time at the pre-application meetings for both properties, over time, we've highlighted the need for this to work cooperatively, and it's worked out favorably, but they both need it. So with the development of the adjacent hotel for members first, and development of this for expanded occupancy, and Tony was out there earlier today with Harvey, just to identify, review the specific location, width, bollards placement, maneuvering ability relative to the existing hotel. So that's been reviewed, and I think we're heading in the right direction.
what's the timeline ideally that they think they'd like to break ground? Probably, well, we were hoping to do it this year, but obviously that probably may not be possible. We're going to try and we're going to resubmit in September for final plan, and then depends on the, probably spring. I'm going to say spring. They probably could start breaking ground in the fall, but you know how that can go. Sometimes it's going to be weather dependent. So, but they're ready to move forward though. That is a definite.